Welcome to this week, and what a week it has been. Another Sunday, another stream. It is great to be here. Last week, I think we had a very awesome stream, so I am looking forward to seeing if we can recapture the energy we had last week, because I'll tell you, I had a lot of fun last week, so I've been looking forward to tonight. All right, so what do we got going on tonight? We got a lot of different stuff. We actually have a little bit of news. So we got tons of stuff to talk about as we move along. Also, this week coming up is my birthday. So we got that too. So, not to say that we're going to turn this into a little celebration for me, but yeah, no, we're not. We won't do that. Anyway, glad to see you guys are here. Let's get this started. So, very first thing off the top right away is we had the Bank of Canada do a rate hike this week. So we're looking at a little bit, it was a 75 basis points rate hike, which basically means 0.25%. What that did in total is that raised our overall interest rate up to 3.25%, which is, it's getting up there. So we're looking at things like mortgages, we're looking at things like credit cards, we're looking at all of these things going up. Now, the interesting thing is this is something they're trying to do they want to knock inflation down to 2%. Now, our last CPI had inflation at 7.6%, so they have a long way to go. So what does this mean? Well, there are some economic signs to show that the rate hikes are starting to do their jobs. So I have a feeling it means that when time comes in October, when they meet again, we're going to look at a smaller hike, probably about a 50 basis points, I would say. Then after October, I'm hoping. Now, and this is all going to depend on the CPI and the Bank of Canada, but I'm hoping they can ease off a little bit towards the last part of the year, give people a small bit of a break. So we'll have to see how that's going to come up. Now, there's a lot of other governmental type news too that we're going to get to here in a second. I just want to very quickly say hello to Scott. Scott, awesome to see you. And Joe, when is your birthday? Mine's the 13th. Now, I'm just curious because I'll tell you, Joe, if your birthday is the 13th too, that would be really, really cool. And hey to Bleak. Got to love the Bleak. And Scott is reiterating that he thinks as well that it'll be 50 basis points next time as well. So, well, we'll see. Hopefully me and Scott are right. And we have Verena. Good to see you. Always one of my favorite people to see in the chat. So anyway, that is kind of cool. So that's a little bit on the basis on the rate hikes. Here's the interesting thing too. Unemployment. I'm just going to talk about that first because unemployment actually increased. So this is the first time in about 7 months that Canada's unemployment rate went up, and it rose from 5.4%. It rose to 5.4% from it used to be at 4.9%. So we've actually seen a little bit of an increase in unemployment, and those are the type of things that these rate hikes are supposed to be creating. We're supposed to see unemployment go up, and that way there we kind of know that it's working and it's creating less demand overall in the market, which should help lower prices. At least that's what we're hoping it will do. So interestingly enough, though, people who are, Canadians who are low income, they're struggling a little bit. So the government has said, okay, let's do something. So one of the things that they're doing is they're looking at doubling the GST for people who are lower income to mid-income. And they're looking at doubling it. Basically, they say 6 months. That basically means because you get GST every 3 months. So it means your next 2 GSTs may very well be double. The Canadian housing benefit, they're looking to add, of course, $500 to that, which would be fantastic for anybody who's able to take advantage of that. And the last thing that they're rolling out, and this is something we already knew about, but they're getting that dental care for children under 12. They're getting that rolled out, which will be fantastic because as much as I don't like the government spending like crazy, I definitely think that dental care, especially for children and seniors, that should be something that is covered. So I'm well behind that one. So that's kind of cool. That's a little bit with the free money that's coming out. And Joe Snyder says the 14th. Well, pretty darn close, Joe. You know what? I think Joe is in the United States, so we could say that the 13th in Canada, after you go through the exchange rate, becomes the 14th. Don't mind me. I'm just sort of getting a little bit loopy with that one. Verena says, I hope that they stop a little to let us breathe. Yeah, absolutely. See, that's the thing. I would love to see them just let up a little bit. We've had our pedal to the metal for a long time. Especially with the holidays coming up, I would say give people a break, let people breathe a bit. We're in a situation now. I wasn't going to talk a lot about debt tonight for the simple, unless you guys bring it up. If you guys want to talk about debt, we'll talk about debt. But I'm not covering debt too much tonight, at least on my end, only because I did that video on Saturday about debt, But one of the things with debt is, people will run up debt during the holidays. It's, I guess it's almost a tradition in Canada to get yourself, get all your credit cards maxed out towards the end of the year. I'm not saying it's a good tradition. I think there's other ways to spend the holidays without getting yourself deep in debt, but people will still do it. So any little bit of relief with interest rates will be fantastic. But here's the downside to that. If they then start gearing back up to try to push us down to that 2% inflation rate in the new year, all of the Christmas bills, that's when the interest is going to start hitting on things like that. So you may have higher interest to pay off for the holidays after the fact, but at least you won't be worrying about it during the holidays, which is kind of funny if you ask me. All right. So now a little bit about Russia. Good old Russia. Russia always keeps coming up. It's like, do you remember how we used to have what in the banana bread's going on with Elon Musk? Now it's almost like what in the banana bread's going on with Russia, because Elon's not so much in the news, but Russia's always in the news. So Russia, of course, we already know that they had closed Nord Stream 1, and that provides about 35% of the oil that that Europe gets from Russia. So we're in, Europe's in pretty bad shape when it comes with winter coming. In fact, in England, so in the UK, they're estimating that their energy bills this winter are going to be 3 times as big as they were 1 year ago. So 3 times, that's a lot. I don't know if the average UK household could handle that. So Europe's in trouble. And that's a UK stat. I don't have stats for the rest of Europe, but I imagine it's a similar story through a lot of different countries over there. Now, with this Nord 1 shutdown, what Russia has said, and they came out this week and they said, "Oh yeah, we'll turn that gas back on. We'll turn the oil back on for you as soon as the Western sanctions are lifted." So, in other words, it's probably not going to happen. So we're kind of in a little bit of a bummer when it comes to the UK. Do you think they will go down next year? I think you're talking about the interest rates, and I would say no. And I'll tell you why. It's going to take them a while to get things down to 2%. So if they do ease off for the last couple months in this year, I think it's probably going to take them most of next year. They're probably going to look at. I don't think you're going to see like a full 1% or 100 basis points again. But I think you're going to see a lot of 50s and 25s going through the rest of this year. And my best guess, now this is just absolute speculation, so, you guys can speculate in the comments if you want. But my best guess is that by the end of the year, we'll probably get closer to it. And I think at that point, they may sort of realize that, holy banana bread, we're sort of falling into a recession. Maybe we need to ease up a little bit and move in the opposite direction. So I imagine that you won't see any kind of a decrease in interest rate. I would say probably until 2024. So just, don't. I know some people are thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to sit back and wait for the interest rate to go down. It's going to be a long wait. So learn to deal with the interest rates that we have today. And it's really interesting. For those of you who watch the Danter Banter on Wednesday nights over on the Tim and Nancy Danter channel. Gave you guys a little plug. I don't know if you're here or not, but that on that show, we were actually talking a little bit about some of the interest rates, and they're talking about how back, I think it was the 70s, where people used to have interest rates of like 10%, and that was all considered really good. And some of the higher rates were almost a normal part of life. And when I say 10%, we're talking about the Bank of Canada. So, we're not talking about what that even added to on cards. So people used to pay a lot higher interest rates than what we pay today. So it's one of these situations, like, we'll adapt to whatever the interest rate's going to end up being. It's kind of like, if you think about it this way, if you ever think about the price of gas goes up and goes up and goes up and goes up and goes up. And then eventually it will come back down a little bit. And then people will forget the fact that, maybe they were paying let's say they were paying $1 a year ago. Now they're paying close to $2, and then it drops back down to about $1.60. And people are like, oh, so happy, gas is cheap again. Well, it really isn't. If you think about where you were a year ago, you're still way up. But it's just that way that we start to normalize new rates, and that will happen. The same thing will happen with interest rates. The amount of the really, really, really cheap interest rates that we had during the pandemic, we're probably never going to see those again unless something massive happens, like a massive black swan, like another, pandemic 2. This time it's personal. That could, maybe that could do it. It's hard to say. It depends on if we've learned lessons from the previous pandemic. But hopefully we're okay for at least a couple of centuries, a couple of decades before we get the next big event that sort of shakes up the world, because we do. And I mean, the fact that today is September 11th, if you think about it, it was basically, back in 2001, we had one of those big, massive black swan events that completely shook up the world, and then we have the pandemic. So, every, 20 years or so, we get some kind of event. So, maybe another 20 years, but it's hard to say. It could also be accelerating too. If you listen to a lot of the experts who are talking about the fact that pandemics are going to become more normal than anything else. So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, okay. On to my next story. There's no way we can't touch on the Queen briefly. So it's really interesting. So the UK saw a complete shuffle, if you think about it. Their brand new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, she assumed her role this week as the Prime Minister of the UK. And then, rest in peace, Queen Elizabeth, but the Queen passed. And it was interesting. She had been the reigning Queen for 70 years and 214 days. That's a long time to have the same job. Holy banana bread. Now, Prince Charles, of course, is now King Charles III, and he's actually kind of up there in age. He is, I believe, 73. So that's pretty old. So we're probably looking at, if he manages. I mean, I don't know if he'll make it as old as his mom. I mean, women do tend to live longer than men. So I would say within the next 10 to 20 years, we're probably looking at, having another king. And of course, that would be William, who's up next. And he's at like 40. So definitely interesting. And it was really interesting. I was on the YouTube a little earlier, and I actually, there was like a soccer game, a football game over there. And there was just a little clip on God Save the King. So I just listened to that, and I was just like, it was so weird hearing them sing God Save the King. Now, in case any of you are curious about money, right now there's no official plans to remove the Queen off of any of our currencies. And who knows when they might do that, but right now, the official word is no. We're keeping the Queen for now. I know it would be really weird to see some change with, with Prince Charles's head on the back, or King Charles. I'm going to get decapitated by, the British monarchy or something, because I keep calling him Prince. But so that'll be interesting to see. So that's a little bit interesting. We live in interesting times. Things change. I actually, personally, I never thought that I didn't think the queen would ever go. I thought she was going to be around at least till 100. Um, but things do change, and that's kind of the way of the world. Now, here's some interesting car news. Any of you who like cars? So, Volkswagen, who's a German car company, they also own Porsche, and they're looking to actually IPO Porsche within the next couple of weeks or so. So that'll be interesting. Now that's an IPO. Like Porsche will be valued at, I think the evaluation right now is roughly going to be 85 billion pounds. So, think about that in American, because I think right now the pound and the US dollar are almost on par, or the pound might be a little bit lower. I haven't looked at it in the last week. So that's a lot of money. Now sticking to cars, Canada has fallen on. There's a list done by Ernst and Young for the EV, so electric vehicle adoption preparedness list. Canada actually fell 5 spots on that list, which is almost embarrassing, considering the government right now is saying that they want to provide all kinds of funding to make Canada an AV battery production hub for the world. And in addition to that, we've also by 2026, we're looking to try to add about 50,000 charging stations over the next 4 years. So that's a lot of charging stations. So they want to have charging stations absolutely along the Trans-Canada Highway, so people can get from coast to coast with an electric vehicle. But the fact that we fell, I find that rather interesting. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but obviously, it's almost a black eye for our government right now, because where they do want to really push the whole EV. Now, excuse me, I think I've asked this before, but do any of you have an EV, or are you planning to get an EV? So to me, that's really interesting to know, because I don't really know too many people who drive electric vehicles, but it'll be interesting to know just how popular these things are getting. Um, Other than, I guess, apparently King Charles III drives a Tesla, so that's what I heard, but I don't I don't have corroborating evidence to verify that, but that is kind of interesting, at least with the line with cars. So, from cars, let's move on to crops. Last week, and before we do that, I will just quickly pull up Scott here. So Scott has no EV. He's driving his current car into the ground first. Yes, absolutely. And that's one of those things with a car, right? You want to drive it until it gets to a point where it's more cost effective to get a new car. Um, like if your car is basically getting more up and down miles because it's on a lift all the time than actual road miles, it is time to get a new car. And Verena says, not me, just got a new Tucson 2022 last year. Nice. That must be a very, very sweet ride. So good for now. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no reason. I mean, a brand new car, you should be able to easily get 10 years out of it or more, depending on, well, there's a lot of factors. In Canada, if you have a garage, your car is going to last longer because you're going to have much more protection from the environment. And as long as, well, there's no way to protect your car from potholes. Potholes are kind of a Canadian season, so there's nothing you can really do about them. All right, crops. Let's talk a tiny bit about some crops. So we were talking a little bit last week. We mentioned about how we were having some bumper crops up here for wheat in Canada because we've been having great growing seasons. So we talked about wheat, and we also talked about grapes. It's a different story down in the United States. Right now, their crops are not looking very good. They're looking quite bad. In fact, when it comes to corn yields, they have not seen corn yields this bad since 2012. So that's how bad it is down there. And it's all the droughts. They've been having a lot of droughts this year. It has been really affecting things. And I know they're also having trouble with a lot of their berry crops. So your raspberry, your strawberries, um, But, Canada has been great. Canada, we've been really good this year when it comes to food. This is going to be that year where, um, there will be a lot of fresh food available up north, depending on what it is you're looking for. So that's kind of a good thing. And I'm going to, excuse me 1 second. I made one little error. I mentioned grapes. Grapes, actually, we had a bad grape year last year. We actually are looking at lower grape production in Ontario than we were last year. I just got too excited about the wheat that I just pulled the grapes in before I thought about them. All right, so that's crops. Now, another big thing is retail. So right now, and this surprised me because retail's always generally been a minimum wage type job, but apparently right now the average retail starting pay is $17.85 an hour. So it's actually climbed up there. And I think a lot of that becomes because they have to pay more just to get people because of the worker shortage. But here's the interesting thing. So they're basically offering, $17 and a bit. And most Canadians who are retail oriented, who are looking for jobs, they're searching for jobs around the $23 mark. So there seems to be about a $5 disconnect between the two of them. So that I find a little bit interesting. But that's part of the whole thing with inflation. People just need more money to be able to just afford their basic needs. So, of course, people are going to be looking for more higher wages. And when it comes when it comes to the retail sector or any sector really, if your competitor is willing to pay $5 more than they're going to get your employees, it's as simple as that. Brian McGrath is in the house, and you started without me. I'm sorry, Brian. I forgot. I forgot what time zone you were in. So, we just started nice and nice and early. But that's okay, Brian. After the show, you can always just zip back and catch the first 20 minutes because we're here for. Well, it's interesting. The friggin' Oracle. For those of you who are familiar with the friggin' Oracle show, he does these really long streams on Friday nights and Saturday nights and sometimes Sunday nights. He's on vacation this week, so he's basically says he's doing a stream every week. Now, I've heard of them having some pretty epic streams where they go to like 3 or 4 in the morning. Well, I got up this morning and I was getting ready to do some scripting because I have a video coming out tomorrow, so I had to script it. I normally script my video that I film on Sunday on Saturday, but yesterday I was at Comic-Con. So as you can see, I was thinking of the Queen at Comic-Con, and this is what I ended up buying. So there we go. Just a funny little thing. And I also got, well, I'll show you guys. It's right here. A limited edition Spider-Man figurine thing. So that was my Comic-Con stuff. Ooh. As I, stoked my geekdom. But what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so okay. So yes, so the friggin' Oracle was still on this morning. And this was like at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. I was like, what the banana bread? Why is he still streaming? So they did they did a stream last night and it ended up going almost 12 hours by the time it was done. So in light of that, I need to keep pace with the competition. So normally I go an hour. Tonight, guys, I am going 1 hour and 1 minute. That's right. I will make that sacrifice just to keep up with the friggin' Oracle. So this week, we also had the big Apple announcements. So any of you guys who are Apple fans, you're probably already familiar with them all. But now, I'm bringing these up not because I want to boast about what products Apple has, but because there is some interesting stuff that this sort of relates to the way the economy is going and the way people are spending. So, first of all, when it comes to the Apples, they're coming out with the iPhone 14, AirPods, and a new iWatch. The iWatch. It's really interesting too, is that their phone is going to have satellite connectivity. So if you get in trouble somewhere and you're not within a the range of a phone or a phone tower, you'll be able to call via satellite. Fantastic. Love the technology. I'm an Apple fan. That's cool. But here's the thing. They're putting them out at the same pricing point as their previous phone, at least in the US. I think it's going to be the same for Canada, but I can't guarantee the rest of the world. What this is interesting about is, are people going to buy? Are people going to pick up the new iPhone? As much as I want the new iPhone, I'm not going to buy it. I have an iPhone 11. It works absolutely perfect. Because I own it, I'm not paying extra money to like one of the phone companies to, to finance a new phone. I wouldn't finance a new phone anyway. I mean, if you ever were to do the calculations of how much you're paying extra on your plan to finance a phone over the 2 years, you end up paying much more than what the phone is worth. So honestly, hold your phone. If you are in a situation where you're thinking, I want a new phone in the next year, start putting some money aside and then buy the phone outright. You will save money in the long terms. But anyway, back to the Apple story. What this is interesting for is that we're going to have a little bit of an experiment. If Apple sales start going down, it's really, really going to be a reflection on what's going on with this overall economy. And that's going to be really neat to see. So I'm going to be looking at that as we get data on that, what will come out probably in the next couple of months or so, to see how that happens. I mean, they had a flashy show. They put all the product on the shelf, but now it's time to see if the customers are going to take that product from the shelf. All right, so Phil says 12 hours, 15 minutes for Ken's show. And Mr. Red Taco said 11 hours, 59 minutes. Yeah, I thought it was closer to what Mr. Red Taco, because I remember I saw it and I was like, oh my God, why didn't you just stay on a few more minutes to hit the 12-hour mark? And Verena, I admit I bought the new iPhone Pro 14 Max. There you go. So she bought me a birthday present. I need to give you my address, Verena, so you can send that over to me. Not just kidding. But yeah, I will admit I salivate over some of this new technology, and some of my background is with tech. I love technology. I love computers. I love every time there's a new thing that comes out, and I'm like, oh man, there's a part of me that's like, come on, iPhone 11, please break. But I take really good care of my stuff, so it's still quite literally, even my battery life, I'm still getting 90% of the battery life that I had from when it was brand new. So it's like, it's just not dying. So I guess I bought a good one. Why did I pick a good one? That's how I look at it. But I also really love money. So trust me, that little part of me, that's the geek part of me that wants to have all those shiny new gadgets, is pretty much clubbed very quickly by the financial minimalist side of me. So I don't want to buy my phone with a carrier anymore because, like you said, it is too much. Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And here's an interesting thing. Now, I'm paying for this right now. Because right now, I don't anticipate me doing a lot of stuff outdoors because I work from my studio. So I barely leave the house unless I really need to. So I've actually dropped down to just one of them texting plans. So I'm paying like $30 a month. I have absolutely no internet if I leave the house right now. That's only going to be probably for a couple of months, probably, yeah, maybe until October. So I'll probably go back up to a regular plan in October, though I am thinking about moving over to Freedom just because their plans are a little bit cheaper. And, whoops, I almost missed this one. I just upgraded from a 6-year iPhone to a 2-year refurbished iPhone. Yeah, and you can save some money with some of the refurbished ones as well, which is fantastic. I like to have the choice between which carrier I want. Yeah, choice is everything. And here's the thing. If you don't travel outside of a big metropolitan area, so let's say you live in Toronto and you're always in the GTA, well, then something like Freedom is probably going to be one of your better choices, especially if you want a good amount of data. But normally, if you do travel outside into a lot of rural areas, Freedom is not the best for the rural areas. In a case like that, you're either going to want to go with one of the big three, or they also have their sort of discount brands, like, like your Fido and, the other, I think there's a couple of others as well. You can sort of sign up with one of those as well, and they're pretty good outside of that. And Scott says, I read that Apple is in talks with Starlink to be able to connect. Would not be surprised. That would be fantastic, because Starlink is pretty much everywhere. Now when I look up at the sky, it's like starlight, star bright. Wait a minute, no, that's a Starlink. Most of the things I'm seeing in the sky, I'm pretty sure are Starlink. And Veruca says, I am just an electronic geek. Yeah, absolutely. I love technology. It's one of those things. It's I used to build my own computers from scratch, and nowadays, well, I've got my MacBook Pro, so, and that's sort of a necessity thing, because I can actually do a lot of what I do when it comes to YouTube. I can do that all on the MacBook Pro nice and easily. It's really fast at processing videos, and probably the best $4,000 I spent, to be honest. I cringe seeing ads to finance a cell phone. If you need to finance a phone, the person needs to look at their priorities. Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. If you can't afford to buy the phone outright, then you can't afford to buy the phone. People are, it's so easy to get distracted by the shiny things. Now, I know some people, they've got the money to do it, so that's fine. But they have to have the brand new iPhone every single year. And I'm just like, oh my, I would rather put that money into, investing or do something with it, opposed to just spending the money like that. Now, I do hold Apple stock, so when people do that, I guess I'm making a tiny bit of money. So I don't mind that way. And exactly what Scott said, better to buy 1,500 in Apple stock than the new phone. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I will get another iPhone when my iPhone does finally die, but I look at it this way. It may be like the iPhone 16 might be my next phone, the way this one is holding up. So that is fantastic. Getting an unlocked phone is good, especially if you want to change between carriers. Yeah, absolutely. And here's, in case people aren't aware of this, any new phones now have to be unlocked. You're not, the carriers are not allowed to lock them anymore. And if you have an older phone that is still locked, they have to unlock it for free. Okay, so they can't charge you like $50 to unlock your phone anymore. So keep that in mind. And that's kind of a cool thing. And then Jill says data is life, internet is a need nowadays. Yeah, it really is. And here's that funny thing. If I start getting out and about a bit more, um, I'll get lost so easily. I don't know the streets. I need to have I need GPS. I really do. I know this. I admit this. Now I used to be really good with maps back in the days when people carried around maps, but I don't have a map right now, and GPS is just so much easier. And you can get your carrier phone unlocked if you are not on a plan or owe money on the phone. Yeah, exactly. Now it's interesting. The phone companies do have a way. If you owe money on a phone and you don't pay them, and the phone is unlocked, they can still do something. They can lock the IMEI code on the phone, and it basically makes it into a paperweight until you pay them what you owe. So they can do that to you. Just keep that in mind in case you're thinking of, I don't know, going on the lam from your phone company. Um, all right. And Phil said, I just got rid of my flip phone a few years ago. Holy banana bread, Phil. That's kind of cool. I remember the flip phones. I have a funny story about a flip phone before we get to the next news article. Um, so at the time, I was a head trainer over at an internet company, and well, head trainer. I've managed the training department, so I wasn't really a head trainer. But one of the trainers was doing a research on a flip phone of all things, and it was this really cool looking red flip phone, and it was red because it was, I think it gave money to breast cancer. But he did all this research on it, and I walked up and I was looking at it, and he says, "Oh, yeah, this is the one I was looking at." I looked at it and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's a nice little flip phone." So I needed a new flip phone. So I went out that evening and I went to, I think it was Rogers. I went to the Rogers kiosk and I got the red flip phone. I came in the next day and I was just like, check out my new phone. Oh my God. Well, this guy, his name was Aaron. He was absolutely upset. He was like, I did all that research. I was going to get that phone and you just went out and bought it. And I was like, well, yeah, it's just a great looking phone. You did your research paid off. He ended up getting something completely different because he did not want to have the same phone as me. So, but that's okay. I didn't have to really do a lot of research. So it paid off on my end. So anyway, that was kind of a little bit of an interesting thing. And hello, Muggsy. It's always good to see you. And late is better than never, right? That's what they say. I think that you can put something on the IMEI number, kind of like a lien on your house or car. Yeah, they can definitely do that. Some companies still sell flip phones. I think they were $70. Oh yeah, yeah. And Muggsy says absolutely. Good old flip phones. All right. Next topic I have is just a little bit on Netflix. So it's really interesting. People don't realize how hard it has been for poor Netflix. So in their last quarter, Netflix has lost, get this, 1 million subscribers. That's a lot. And if you think about it, that's just the amount of income coming in with 1 million subscribers. That's crazy if you're looking at $20 each. So, that's like, it's like what, 20 million or so. So yeah, just crazy amounts of income. Now, as a result, of course, they have laid off 400 people. So that's kind of interesting. Elon Musk did not buy Netflix. I'm pretty sure of that. But there's rumors around that Elon Musk is buying everything from football teams to Netflix. And Phil says, wow, yeah. So there's a lot of tightening going on at Netflix. So some shows are getting their budgets cut. So, they've had to, they are having to cut back on the content that they're making on on some of the quality. So we'll have to see how that works. I think their big shows, things like like your Stranger Things and things like that are probably going to have the same budget. I don't think they're going to do much cutting on those. But a lot of their secondary stuff and their sort of less popular stuff, you're probably going to see stuff get cut. And you're probably going to see them be a little bit more stringent when it comes to renewing something. Like it's like if the show's not doing well, it's probably not getting the second season on Netflix anymore. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, Netflix isn't the only kid on the block anymore. They have crazy competition now. And speaking of crazy competition, Disney Plus has actually passed Netflix. So they have more subscribers than Netflix. So they are doing well. Of course, now they have some of the juggernaut shows. If you're any kind of a geek whatsoever and you're into Star Wars or into Marvel, you pretty much probably have a Netflix subscription. And there's a lot of great content on the way. They just did D23 on the weekend, and there's a lot of really big Disney Plus shows coming down the line. So, they're playing their cards right. They know what they're doing, and Netflix just doesn't know what they're doing. Well, they probably know what they're doing, but they don't know how to deal with competition, and that's what's killing them. That's what's knocking them down. Netflix is like they're just like that person who's, if you remember the whole thing with what was it, the hare and the turtle. The turtle wins that race. Why? Because the turtle was consistent, knew what it was doing. The hare was like, oh yeah, I'm just so fast, I got the lead, who cares, I'm going to take a nap. Well, that's what Netflix did. Netflix took a nice big nap, and now Disney Plus has passed them, and I wouldn't even be surprised if you see somebody like Prime pass them at this rate. So, it's kind of interesting. Netflix really needs to start looking at their business model. They really need to see what they can do to salvage things, because it's not looking good for Netflix. So, and that's kind of interesting. Now, the last story I have, and the rest of it will be just us talking. The last story I have is about family doctors. I want you guys to guess right now, how many Canadians do you think do not have a family doctor? So we have a doctor shortage. We have wait lists in pretty much every province. I'm on a wait list for a family doctor. I know in Nova Scotia, apparently the wait list is more than 3 years. It's closer to 5 years to get a family doctor in Nova Scotia. Now I'm in Ottawa. I'm on the wait list, and I think it's supposed to be a year or maybe 2. I don't know. I've been on it since a while back, but we'll have to see how long that's going to take. But all right, so here in the chat, let's throw some guesses at me. I want to see who can get it. What's a family doctor? That's the correct answer. What is a family doctor? Well, here's the interesting thing. As I'm waiting for some guesses, we'll see if anybody can get this. And don't Google it, folks. Just see what you can find out. And look at this. Mr. Red Taco has to travel 3 hours round trip on transit to see a family doctor. That's holy banana bread time. Jill is letting me know. That's right. It was a tortoise and a hare, not a turtle. Yeah, tortoises and turtles. I guess that's challenging. Now Dwarley says Calgary's not bad for family doctors. Yeah, I can understand. I mean, Calgary's a beautiful city to live in too, so I imagine there's a lot of doctors that just want to live there. Joe brings up Netflix is added a lot more international content, which is nice. Yeah, absolutely, and they're starting to do that. Well, that's part of the cost savings, right? If there's already a series that was made in Korea, and you can just throw some subtitles on it, or you can dub it, that's a lot cheaper than producing and designing your own show. I mean, if you think about it, that's where Squid Game come from, and that was a huge, massive hit. And there's a lot of really good content over in Korea and Japan, and you're going to probably see a lot more of that hit Netflix and probably other streaming services as well, because it's it already works, it's popular. And all right, I got some guesses here. So Muggsy says 5 million. Muggsy, it is higher than 5 million. And Jill said 3 million. Trevor says, I have a new doctor for 1.5 years and haven't met her yet. Now, is that hopefully that's because you just haven't needed her. Because it would suck to have a family doctor, but it takes like 1.5 years to get an appointment. It's like, yeah, I can see you in 2024. So that's just kind of interesting. Mr. Red Taco, I've had my doctor for almost 2 decades. I'm not changing. Absolutely. Now, here is the danger, though. If your doctor is older and they retire, guess what? You're going on them waiting lists. So keep that in mind. And Muggsy says, wow, yeah, because it's more than 5 million. All right, you guys, 5 million was close, though. I will say that. The actual number is 6 million Canadians are without a doctor. So that's 6 million people. Now, family doctors are pretty important. They're pretty much that front line for catching things early. They're that one that's going to catch a lump. They're that one that's going to recognize that there's a serious problem in development. Now you're at a situation where if you don't have a family doctor, you probably don't want to go to a walk-in clinic, regularly, because walk-in clinics are just quite literally, they're a time suck. Unless you show up before they open, then you might be able to see a doctor within an hour. That's kind of the reality of that. So it's good to have a family doctor, because then you can have you can have a more streamlined health, and that doctor will have the opportunity to actually know about your history because they've actually got your files. Opposed to going from walk-in clinic to walk-in clinic, where it's pretty much, I don't know about you guys, anytime I've gone into a walk-in clinic, I pretty much just tell the doctor what I want and they just give it to me. It's one of those situations where it's almost like you need to be your own doctor. Although they're not paying me to be my own doctor, but they practically should. Whoops. And I think right here, I was trying to find out where we are. Are we talking about across Canada? Yes. And Trevor said that healthcare was good for him. Jill said that's not true. My doctor retired and someone bought her practice, so I managed to keep my family doctor. Perfect. Yeah, there are some situations where a doctor does retire and they have somebody to take their patients, which is fantastic. But I know my stepfather, who has a lot of health issues, when his doctor retired, they were all pretty much just cut to the wind. And some doctors are like that. If they don't have someone to take over, or there's just nobody who has the space to take over their patients. That's what happens. It's sad, but it's true. Are you talking about family doctors or just a doctor in general? We're talking about family doctors, so family medicine. And then my cardiologist retired, and I can't get a new one. You see, that's the thing. I only go into a walk-in clinic before I'm a step before going to the hospital if I can't get into my family doctor. Yeah, and that's one of those things, though. But you take it. You can ignore health issues for a long time. That if you had a family doctor, it's like, okay, well, I'll just check out with the family doctor and see what's going on. Where if you have to go through the pain of going into a walk-in clinic, you might have a situation where, it might have been an easy fix and it becomes a much more difficult fix a year later. So it's just one of those things to keep in mind. What was I going to say? I had something on that. See, don't you hate that when you have an idea and it just completely just goes boop, right out of your head? It was in regards to doctors. Well, I guess a couple of things. Well, I don't remember what I was trying to go at, but I'll go at something different here. In regards to doctors, one of the things that they really need to start looking at, and I think Nova Scotia just started to do this, where as long as you're on the wait list, you're allowed to then use an approved video, so online doctor, which is fantastic. And I think it should be that way, because if online doctors were available province-wide, Canada-wide, for people who maybe don't have a family doctor or are on those waiting lists, if they want to put their stipulations in, cool, fine. At least then, I mean, think about it this way: from a doctor's perspective, how many people can you get through online compared to going into an office? But now it'd be a situation where you just want to use a online doctor for simple stuff, like, you need a prescription renewed. Now, in some cases, they do provide a lot more power to pharmacists. I know if you have a prescription in Ontario, for the most part, they can actually renew it at the pharmacy for so many times. But they do have a limit to that. They do then say, sorry, you got to go see your doctor again, get it renewed on their part, and then we can renew it further after that. But I think online doctors would be fantastic. Now, Mr. Red Taco says, oh, I don't wait that long. If it's less than a week, I'd go to a walk-in. Yeah, well, that's because you're smart. You're smart. But, and what I was going to say, it was in reference to that, was during the pandemic, people were so afraid of getting COVID that there was a lot of people that just did not go into their doctors or go into walk-in clinics, or even go to emergency. There was people that just toughed out things, and they're, no doubt at all, some people are not with us today because they were afraid of getting COVID, that they wouldn't go to even going to emergency or going to find out. So people really, really let things go. I think with cancer, is one of those areas where somebody may have felt a lump and they're like, it's probably nothing. I don't want to go in there and get COVID and die from COVID. And so people were really paranoid about that. Now, not everybody. I mean, there's a lot of really smart people that if they have a lump that's not normal, they're going to go get that checked out, as you always should. But yeah, it's just pretty bad. And then Mr. Red Taco, online doctors would help a bit as long as that you don't need to have regular appointments, blood work, etc. Yeah, it really depends on what your situation is. One of the big things I think is that if somebody is on, for example, lifetime medication, that's where it's really good that the pharmacists have that ability to renew that every so often, up to a limit. But, maybe that's something you want to increase, because we have to sort of look at free healthcare is fantastic and everything, but we're at that point where, it takes too long to see a doctor. It takes too long to get anything done. Now, I think a lot of people are like, oh my God, because of the wait times, I can't get critical surgery. If you need critical surgery, they bump you. just so you guys are aware that you will get bumped to the front of the line. If it's life-threatening, absolutely, they will bump you. But it's the things that are not life-threatening. If you have an issue that you may need surgery on a knee, for example, but if you don't get the surgery, you're going to be in awful pain for a while, you are not a priority. Whereas if your actual life is in jeopardy, they will bump you to the front of the line. You will get your health care right away. without the giant bill that you would get, for example, if you lived in the United States and didn't have enough insurance, you could certainly walk away from a pretty big bill down there. But luckily, up here, it's not quite so bad. But yeah, all of the stuff that is not life-threatening, you're going to wait longer than you would, for example, down south. In fact, I know there are people who have actually, like Canadians, who are better off, who are very well off. A lot of times, if they have an issue that they don't want to wait our system's lengthy time, they'll actually go down to the States and get some service down there. It does happen. So when we say we don't have a two-tier system, well, in a sense, we do. If you've got enough money and you want to go to the States and get that knee taken care of so you're not in pain for the next 6 months, that's an option. It absolutely is. So, and then Trevor, I bet you it's not even a 24-hour turnover. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And Trevor said, doesn't take long to see a mortician. Well, that's probably true. That's probably true. Not one of those things that I have. Now, while you guys throw me some questions or something, I'll give you an idea of what's coming up on the channel. So we're going to do another deep dive on Thursday. And right now, I do not yet have a company name. So if you want a deep dive on any particular company, throw it in the chat right now. First one that I haven't done already, I will do. Simple as that. I'm putting that out there. You guys I could end up doing a very funky video if somebody with a sense of humor decides to type in really fast. But that'll be my Thursday. Also, Wednesday nights, as I mentioned before about the Danter Banter, I am on that show every Wednesday night. So if you guys are new to this channel and don't know who Tim and Nancy Danter are, just look them up on YouTube, Tim and Nancy Danter. It'll bring up their channel. Throw them a quick sub so you'll know when we're up on. There we go. Pfizer. Oh, it's going to be an American deep dive. All right. And that's Tim or Nancy from the Tim and Nancy Danter show. So yeah, Wednesday nights, I am on that show. It starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's fantastic. It's not as much into stocks as this show is. I'm pretty much the stock person. Nancy's our food and supply person, although she's not going to be on this week. Tim is our former head driver from Canada's Worst Driver. So the conversation gets good. We get into a lot of things, and sometimes we have Ken on as well from the friggin' Oracle. So a lot of great talk. Anyway, check out the show. I'll be on it. And then Thursday, deep dive on Pfizer. So that will be fun. Then, of course, on Saturday's video is always my, I forgot about Monday. I forgot that today is, all right, so Monday, that's tomorrow. I actually have, last week I did Aristocrat. I did all of the high dividend Aristocrat videos. Tomorrow, it's a very similar video, but this time it is entirely Aristocrat REITs. And here's an interesting thing. 2 of the top REITs made it into last week's list. So I have not put them in this new list. And I sort of explain that in the video as well. So it's going to be some Aristocrats and some REITs. So that's going to be kind of cool. Definitely some really neat companies in there. Next Saturday, we'll have another video. It's kind of like, I call it This Week Presents unofficially. I usually look for something in the news that's topical, and then I make a video on it. So yesterday's was on debt, and next week's, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be yet because we have to see what happens in the week. So that's fantastic. And then we'll, of course, be back here again next week on This Week. That always sounds weird to say. So that will be kind of cool. All right. So now I did promise you guys 1 hour and 1 minute. So we have a little bit of time here just to talk about this, that, and anything. So yesterday I did go to Comic-Con. As I mentioned, I showed you guys, the little Freddie Mercury and the Spider-Man, and I got a small little Lego set as well that I put together last night, which is fantastic. It was actually nice to see that it was operation because it's been a few years since they've had these big gatherings. Now, I figure I'm okay because I had COVID in July, so I think I'm not too worried about getting reinfected. Yeah, well, if I do, I do. But it seemed to be pretty good. I mean, there was a lot of people there. Got to watch a couple of. If you guys are any of you guys who are like old Buffy fans, Jane Marsters was there, so got to, you know, and what was really great is went with Jill, and she's visually impaired, so because of that, we didn't have to wait in the lines. We basically got to go in right away and get the best seat in the place. So that was kind of very cool. So, we had front row for Jane Masters, and we saw a few other people as well, but he was kind of the big one because I know myself, I was a big yeah, Phil loves Comic Cons. I was a big Buffy fan when I was younger, so it was kind of cool to see Spike in the flesh. So though a little bit older, so I'm beginning to question whether or not he's really a vampire, but we'll just go at that. Where was it? It was in Ottawa. So it was the Ottawa Comic Con. I think it's called the EY Center, something like that. I'm sure if I said that wrong, Jill will correct me. But I think it was called the EY Center. It's a big center down off of Uplands in Ottawa. So those are back, and there's going to be, of course, I think there's one in Toronto. I don't know when it is. Now, one of the people who was going to be at this Comic Con was Lou Ferrigno, and I kind of wanted to see him too, just because he used to be the Hulk, but he canceled. So that's Ernst and Young. Ah, there we go. That's why it's called EY. Woohoo! Which could be a short-term investment on Wealthsimple. So are you looking for what could be a short-term investment? So short-term investments, I'll just talk a little bit about that. Short-term investments are always fun because they're the riskier ones. When you're trying to make money on a shorter time frame, then you have a little bit of issues because it's much more difficult to predict a market short-term. It absolutely is. Long-term, it's easy because long-term, if you have enough patience, unless you really, really went with a bad company, you're usually going to make some money, which is fantastic. But when it comes to short-term, now, when you're saying short-term, are you talking about I want something I can flip in a day, or I'm trying to flip it in 2 months or a week? So there's a whole bunch of different short terms. But I'll give you an example. Now, what I do in the daytime, I do day trading during the week because that's how I support myself. YouTube will eventually replace the day trading as I, of course, start to make more money on YouTube. Right now, I don't make anything on YouTube because I'm still, pushing up. And of course, we're about 50 subscribers or 45 or 46 subscribers away from getting monetized. So, hey, anybody here who hasn't subscribed yet, definitely do that. Click on that because that will get us a little bit closer. And just a second, Tim and Nancy Dancer said, did you see that the Department of Agriculture in the States is toying with Bitcoin and ETH as a commodity, not to be under? Well, it is interesting because the SEC, there was an interview with one of the members of the SEC not that long ago, maybe 2-3 months ago, and he called it a commodity in that interview. He said that, that was just Bitcoin. So, but if ETH is being classified that way too, that would be really fantastic. Now, keep in mind the merge with ETH, I believe it starts on September 13th until the 15th. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. But Nitin, back to what I'm saying. Usually, if you're looking to do a really short term, so when I'm looking to do a short term trading, what I will do is I will look for a company who's going through a lot of volatility. So I'm looking for ups and downs, ups and downs. And what I'm doing, the way I do it is I'm buying when it's at the bottom of a peak, or bottom of a peak, a bottom of a trough, and then I'm selling it as soon as I get to the top. So I'm making sort of using a little bit of TA to sort of predict where this is going to happen. And a lot of times it's all like, it's not like I'm going to make a giant amount instantly. So I might quite literally buy, I might drop like, let's say $4,000 on a stock, and then it goes up and I'm selling it and I'm making about a $20 profit. But I'm doing this multiple times, through a morning or even into the afternoon. And I normally have a goal of how much I want to make in a day. Like right now, because where I'm just using it to sort of supplement myself. Um, as long as I usually like to make at least $100 each day. There are days where I have some really good trades. So, for example, uh, not that long ago, I wrote an inverse ETF down as oil was absolutely crashing, and I made you know uh, I almost made $1,000 of that day just from writing things down. But here's the thing, Nitin. It is very dangerous. Um, if you make a wrong move, if you throw all of your eggs at, put all your eggs in one basket, and that basket absolutely crashes, you can lose some money. Um, and that's kind of interesting. Now, Tim and Nancy asked, are you using the same stock during the day or is it one time? It really depends on what's happening in the market. So if oil is absolutely volatile, so one day I may be playing with the inverse, with an inverse ETF for oil because oil's just crashing that day. So I'm making some money. Now, when it crashes, it's not a straight line. It goes down, up, and it does those peaks. But although it's continually going down, I'm going to be riding that. And then I'm going to take all of that and it adds up. It just keeps on adding up. Now, what I might end up doing the next day is oil's probably going to be looking at a rebound. Maybe I'll look at the markets. I mean, I look at the Asian markets. I look at the European markets. I look at all of the futures before the market even opens. I know if it's going to be green or red. I know this already, unless something horribly goes wrong. But 90%, I got to put a 90% chance of knowing exactly what the market's going to be doing. And then that's how I determine who I'm going to be looking at when it comes to picking. But the big thing here is you're looking for a stock with a higher beta and with a lot of volatility because you're riding those movements up and down as they move, and that is where you're making your money. It's not that you're throwing your money in a big stock and at the end of the day you're just cashing that out and you're like, oh, I made a ton. You're not going to make a ton that way. You have to play the ups and downs. You got to play. So you have to be very attentive, very logical. You've got to absolutely check your emotions at the door if you're doing day trading. Now, I'm not going to give you an individual stock on which ones you should use. However, somewhere down the line, I might just make a day in the life in which you might get to see a few things on the screen that might give you some idea. Now, where do I do my day trading? Currently, right now, I'm not doing it in Wealthsimple. I got two main tools. I'm doing it in a personal account in a national bank because they also have zero commission. And I just really like their interface. It's nice and easy for me to be able to move things quickly. And I'm using Apple has a fantastic stock app within the computer. I use that for watching a lot of my market stuff because I can basically tell it exactly what I want to watch, and it is updated real time. And then when I'm watching that and I see where I want to go, I may move back over to national and cash out and then get myself ready to cash in. Because a lot of times what happens is I may be wanting to buy at this level and sell at that level, and I just pay attention to it. Sometimes if I'm at a point where I need to sell, but I'm not, I need to go away from the computer for a bit, I may also throw in a limit sell. So that way there, if it hits my limit, if it doesn't hit my limit, because normally, and the stocks I'm choosing are stocks I know are not going to go like completely, they're not going to go completely to the moon, and they're not going to go completely into a crash mode. They're going to move up and down. And I know roughly where it's almost like if you've ever watched my video on swing trading, if you haven't, just search for swing trading on my channel. It's the only video. It sort of shows you how to chart a channel. So a lot of times that's what I do with these is I chart a little channel. I'm going up and down, and that does it. That, I'm buying at the bottom, selling at the top, continually through the day, chipping away. Obviously, too, the more money that you have that you can play with, the more money you can make. You know, if you're, but you know, if you don't have that luxury that you just don't have a lot of money that you can use, well, one, you may not want to be doing swing trading because if you do lose your money, you know, I always say I use an amount of money that if I were to lose it all, I'm not going to, but if I were, you know, it's not going to kill me or anything like that. So hopefully that answers a little bit. And I will probably make a video on day trading down the road because I think there's enough interest within the community to sort of get a better idea of how it works. It's almost like you should do a video on this or a course. Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing, though. I thought about doing courses, you know, that I could, you know, use as a way just to monetize stuff. But right now, I don't think I really want to at this moment. I have been toying around with the idea of writing some books, but that's just sort of touring around, and we'll sort of see where that goes. Gotta go, but it was nice watching your video. Have a great day. Take care, Verena. It is fantastic. Does the commodity markets become hotter in the fall in prep for next year growing seasons? It's a good question. I don't really play the commodity market, so I don't actually know that answer. I could make a hypothesis, but I'd rather have an exact answer. So I will look into the commodity markets and I will see if I can get an answer for you. Where are you from? I'm originally from Nova Scotia, but I live in Ottawa. And I agree with Jill. Yes, of course you would, Mutsy. And do you work? Well, yeah, I do the day trading and I do YouTube. That's what I do. You know, and depends on the week. Like last week was a short week. I had a short week. I had 4 trading days, and I think I made, I don't know, $900, something like that. So that was just last week. But it really depends on the week. Normally, if we have a lot of red days, I tend to make more money. Just because I can play, I like playing red days. They're just so much easier to play. I would take your course for sure. Okay, well, there we go. Everybody's twisting my arm. Maybe I will. I don't know. This is an unofficial thing. And great stream. Love the info. Thank you. All right, so we made it past the 1 minute and 1 second. So, or 1 minute, 1 hour and 1 minute. Holy banana bread. I am a bit of a muffin head today. So, and there, Muggsy would take my course too. Thank you. I really appreciate that. For the most part, I don't want to create like a 2-tiered community right now. And that's one of the reasons I'm not really looking to push a course immediately. Right now, I like the idea that the information I provide is for everybody. If I were to do something like write a book, yeah, I mean, sure, you might have to pay a little tiny bit if you really want it. But if you don't want the book, just continue watch my videos. All of the information will still come out in those videos. It's not like the book's going to have a whole secret thing. It's more or less going to be like, instead of watching 8 or, instead of watching, let's say 50 videos, you could just read a book. That would be kind of the general idea. But like I said, that is still something I am throwing around in my head. What a fantastic video. Oh, and I bought the day trading book for. Oh, yeah. Very cool. So anyway, we will talk more about it. And here's the thing. If you guys want more information on day trading and want to talk about it more, next week we get another live stream. Come back for that live stream and start hitting me up in the questions right away. And we'll get that, get all that information out for you guys. So that's kind of fantastic. All right, so we went a little over time, but that's okay because you guys are great and you guys deserve it. I love talking with you guys. So that's about it for today. I just want to thank you guys all for being here. This has been a fantastic show. The highlight of my Sunday for sure. And Verena, I will be here. Somebody say goodnight to the community and I will just throw you up here. Next week, 2 hours and 2 minutes. Yeah, that's We'll see about that. Yes, that is definitely Tim, because that's a Timonism. Timonism? And hit those likes, folks. Yeah, hit the likes. Always hit the likes. Anytime you're listening or you're doing YouTube with somebody, it helps the algorithm. So I look at it this way. When I watch a video, if I'm enjoying it, I figure other people will enjoy it too. So I hit the like, because then that algorithm will send it to other people. All right, everybody. That's it for tonight. We will see you guys all again really soon. Thank you guys for being here. Enjoy the rest of your evening and the end of your weekend. This has been fantastic. Bye, everybody.